Okay, so good morning, everybody. I'm starting the recording now. So um, this is the Calc3 intro session. So we're just going to walk through some of the administrative details for the course, talk about some of the ancillaries and so on, and then answer any questions anybody has. So once again, if you do have any questions or anything like that, you can feel free to unmute yourself or ask, but your voice might be on the recording. So as long as you're okay with that, that's not a problem. So the kind of home base for the course is Blackboard, courses.ccac.edu. I think that's the easiest way to get to the Blackboard site. You can also get there through the portal. You can access an old version of the Blackboard site, which I like a lot better than the new fancy looking version that I don't know, that I don't think works quite as well. I don't think it's quite as efficient. So if you want the direct link for this, actually, maybe I'll just post the direct link in the chat in case any of you are like me and prefer the legacy system. So let me hide my meeting controls again. There we go. So just in case you want the older version, you can use that version with that direct link. But yeah, so this is the Blackboard site for the course. This is kind of the home base. We have a couple of announcements already. Let me turn my student mode on. A couple announcements already. The intro announcement for week 1, which I posted yesterday, has a few things for you to kind of do to get set up in the course. And then the day 2 announcement, which I just posted maybe 15 minutes or so ago, has the kind of plan for today, which is really just building on the material from yesterday. In the course documents tab, there are WebAssign student registration instructions, as well as occasionally some students have a little bit of technical issues with this this kind of standard way of getting into WebAssign. So sometimes this alternate WebAssign registration instructions document, sometimes these instructions work a little better for some students. These are actually the instructions that I would recommend to you, but Cengage recommends the first instructions, so I would say probably go with that, and then if that doesn't work, try the backup. If you bought a any kind of access code or something directly from the bookstore, note that there's a little bit of complication getting your actual WebAssign access code. So if you bought your code from the bookstore, what they will typically do is they'll typically give you a code, but unfortunately it's not a WebAssign code, it's a Follett code. It's a code for the bookstore's internal system. I forget what the name of their system is. Let's see, I think it's this red shelf. So what you would do is you would go to their system, this red shelf, you would create an account, you'd log in with the code that Follett gives you, the bookstore, and then that will somehow generate a WebAssign code that you'll use to log on to WebAssign. So I'm sorry for the extra hassle. Faculty don't really have any say over what goes on with the bookstore. So, I would definitely say that the easier and more straightforward way to go is to just log on to WebAssign and pay Cengage directly with a credit card. But if you're using, financial aid or something, and you might have to go through the bookstore, make sure that you know about those extra steps. But sometimes that can be a hassle. So I just wanted to make sure we were clear about that. I've also opened up a discussion board. Even though my edit mode is off, it's for some reason showing the unavailable discussion boards, but this introductory discussion is the one that's available right now. So if you want to log on and just kind of introduce yourself to the class, with an online class, sometimes it can feel a lot more disconnected. And this just gets you kind of, started communicating with some of your peers. And throughout the course, I'll post a couple of other discussion boards just to, keep folks engaged, keep folks talking with one another, and so on. We'll skip over the syllabus just for the time being. There's some textbook information here. So the text for the course is this huge volume of Stewart's Calculus. This covers obviously Calc 1 through 3. So you might have the book already, you might have access to the WebAssign course already. Some supplementary materials. I like Sham's outlines for problems. So basically what Sham's outlines are is they really have a book for almost any kind of technical subject that you might be interested in. And it's just a bunch of worked problems. They start with kind of state a problem and work through all the details and get an answer. Then they have some problems that are like problem statement answer, and then you have to fill in the details. And then they have some other problems that are just problem statement with no answer that are really meant for kind of homework or something like that. We won't be assigning anything out of there, but there's a kind of a counterpart to Sham's, the Humongous books. So Humongous Book of Calculus, some folks like the Humongous Book series better than Sham's. Some prefer Sham's. Personally, I prefer Sham's, but I think it's really just a matter of taste. And then later on in the course, when we get to the vector calculus sections, there are a couple of fairly small, thin books that might make kind of nice ancillaries. From the more kind of physics-based approach, the Student's Guide to Maxwell's Equations is a nice book. Again, it's 100 or so pages and fairly small format, so not a huge read. For a more mathy approach, div, grad, curl, and all of that, an informal text on vector calculus. So they might make nice supplements because that can be some of the more challenging material. And of course, you can also, pick up another calculus book or two. Sometimes it's good to have more than one resource, just because sometimes one author says it in a way that just clicks with you and another doesn't. So, and then lastly, before we get to the syllabus, my information during the summer, I don't have standard office hours. However, if you want to meet by appointment, my schedule is pretty flexible in the summer. So, shoot me an email and I'm happy to set up a Zoom meeting, and we can, we can find a time that works for us and we can meet over Zoom. So my hours are pretty flexible during the summer. Okay, so are there any questions up to this point? I don't see anything in chat. Okay, so moving on to the syllabus. So in the syllabus tab, we have the three very important documents for the course: the syllabus itself, the course schedule, and this kind of document workflow pointers and time expectations. So let's start here, because this is just it's an easier one to kind of get through. I would strongly recommend that you read carefully through each of these three documents. But this workload expectations really just lays out a couple of things. One, for an online class, sometimes it's a little hard to figure out how to navigate it properly. With an on-campus class, it's a little more kind of everybody's in lockstep. With an online class, there's a little more freedom, and sometimes that freedom can be good, sometimes it can be detrimental. So this workflow pointers just gives you an idea of what a typical week might look like if you're taking the course, if you're going through the course material in the way that, at least that I think is best. The big thing here is do not wait until the last minute. Don't wait until Sunday when the homework is due to start the homework or to start studying, start reviewing the material. That's not a good way to learn the material. Work a little bit at it each day. If you want to take a day or two here off, that's not a problem. But I mean, as a general rule, you should be working a little bit each day and chipping away at the material that way. That also gives you some margin if you run into a problem, if you have a tech issue, if you get confused about a certain topic or something like that. That gives you some time to reach out to me, to get an answer from me, to maybe to set up a meeting, something like that. And there's also this workload expectations section. So this is a condensed course. It's a 10-week course. The standard courses are 15 weeks. This is also a fairly demanding course. It's a 4-credit course instead of a 3. It's a higher level course. It's Calc3. It's not a gen ed or an intro level course. So all of that considered, you should be expecting to spend between 10 and 20 hours per week on the course material. So either doing homework, reading the book, writing notes, watching lectures, anything like that. So make sure that you're, willing and able to dedicate that amount of time to the course. Most likely it'll be on the higher end of the scale for most people for most weeks. Okay, so onto the syllabus. First page is really just more of a kind of some boilerplate. As I mentioned, the text for the course and some optional references. Also required is access to the WebAssign online homework exam system. You can get access to the text. It comes included with WebAssign. So if you like using ebooks, if that's your preference, you can just get access to WebAssign. You can either, just go directly to WebAssign and use your credit card to buy access. You can get the code through the bookstore. You can do Cengage Unlimited, which kind of gives you access to their whole library. So if you had, say, more than one course that's using a Cengage book, that might be a little more cost effective. Lots of ways that you can get access to this, to the course materials, but that WebAssign access gets you access to the kind of homework and exam system, but also comes with access to the textbook. Some other materials, make sure to regularly check your CCAC academic email. So if you're, tending to use your Gmail or something like that, your personal email, make sure that you get logged into your CCAC email, that you check it regularly, or at the very least that you have it forwarded to an email that you do use more regularly. And same with the Blackboard account. Make sure you get logged in, kind of navigate around, make sure you're able to get to access everything. Strongly recommend a graphing calculator, something like a TI-83, or you can use a higher level calculator if you would like, that's fine. Also, as we will be using Examity test proctoring system for the exams, having access to a computer with a webcam and a reasonable internet connection that you can, do something like Zoom on, those will also be requirements for the course. The grading scale is the homework counts for 40% of the course grade, and the midterm and final exams each count for 30% of the course grade. I do round grades up because I don't want to at the end of the semester be quibbling about 0.1 percentage point or something like that. So anything strictly above an 89% rounds up to an A, anything strictly above a 79% rounds up to a B, and so on. For emails, if you email me, give me a day to respond. If I don't respond within a day, I sometimes do get bogged down with student emails or with administrative stuff that comes up. So if I don't respond, I might have just overlooked your email. Send me a reminder. Just say, hey, I sent you an email yesterday. Have you gotten a chance to look at it yet? And that'll just, if I didn't see it that first day, or, occasionally some student emails happen to go to the spam folder. If you send through your CCAC email, that really doesn't happen. But if you send it from a personal email, sometimes it gets picked up that way. So yeah, send me a reminder if you don't hear back from me within, something like one business day. Read through all the policies in the syllabus, but an important policy here is the exams will be on the WebAssign website. They'll be very similar format to the homework problems, so you should be familiar with things like how to enter the syntax and all of that. So all of those things should feel pretty familiar. Also, for either of the exams or for both of the exams, after the exam due date, I will go in personally and look through anything the system is marked incorrect, and look at it for either partial credit or maybe full credit if I think that, if it was clearly just a typo or just a syntax issue or something like that. So so sometimes WebAssign can be a little overly picky, but don't worry, don't worry too much about getting all the syntax just perfect on the exam. Focus on communicating the answer effectively, and if WebAssign marks it wrong, when I go through the manual review, I'll see that and then add the points back in. So homework extensions, given that this is a shortened 10-week section, you have 2 homework requests, basically 2 weeks where you can say, hey, I didn't get the homework assignment for this week completed in time. Can you give me an extra week to complete it? Note that the extension only is granted for, if I can select this, there we go. The extension is only granted for 1 week from the original due date. So if you email me halfway into the course and say, hey, can I have an extension for the first week's homework? Well, the answer is no, it's past the 1 week grace period, if you will. But if you email me on Tuesday and say, hey, the homework that was due this past Sunday 2 days ago, can you extend that? Sure, I'll extend it through the following Sunday, and I'll extend all of the sections for that homework set for that week. Make sure you don't get behind. I know in a summer class it's tempting to say, oh, maybe you're going on vacation or something, and you'll kind of just take a week off and then catch up the next week. That's very hard to do, given the difficulty of the material and the condensed time frame. So, in a 10-week class, every week is like an equivalent, week and a half of, say, a fall or spring class. So just keep that in mind. It's very difficult to get caught back up if you get behind, especially given that this isn't an intro level class and that the material tends to build on itself. You're required to take the exams when they're scheduled, so make sure that you carefully look through the course schedule, which we'll look through in a second here. Take note of the 2 exam weeks. The exams will be open for a full week in each of them. So you'll have plenty of time to, make an arrangement to take the exam. If you miss the exam, you receive a 0. So there aren't exam makeups or anything like that. Make sure you take the exams when they're scheduled. And that being said, don't wait till the last minute of the exam window to take the exam either. If something happens, if you have a power failure at your house or some technological, challenge, there aren't extensions on the exams. There aren't retakes for the exams or anything like that. So, give yourself margin with these exams. And then there are some, just kind of boilerplate here at the bottom too. Again, read through the syllabus carefully, make sure you fully understand all of the policies. Take notes of important policies, maybe right in the front of your notebook. So if you have a question, wait, what was the homework policy for this course? It gets kind of confusing with lots of different courses. If you have them jotted down right on the front cover or front page of your notebook, you just open it up. You're like, oh, okay, I've got, 2 requests for homework extensions for up to 1 week each. So I think that's a good practice. It just keeps the important stuff in one place. And of course, these will be available throughout the rest of the course too. So if you want to, you can always just come back here and take a look at this, these documents. And then lastly, in this area, the course schedule. So this is an outline of what we'll be doing each week. We're covering essentially chapters 12 through the end of 16, and a little bit of, 12 through 16. Yeah. I was getting confused with Calc3 there for a second. So these are the chapters we'll be covering. The midterm exam is scheduled for the week of 6/26 to 7/2. It'll be available that whole week. And we'll cover chapters 12 through 14. The final exam, the week of 7/24 to 7/30. We'll cover chapters 15 and 16. Note that the final exam is not cumulative. It would just be too much material for it to be a cumulative exam. And especially with the condensed time schedule, we don't really want to do like 3 exams or something like that. So, so I think this is the best way to work this out. Sections 12.1 through 12.4. That review material is already posted on a website that was posted yesterday. 12.5 and 12.6 are also due this coming Sunday, the 28th. They are posted. I just posted them just before I sent the message. So, something like half an hour ago or something like that. Those are available as well now. And then tomorrow I'll post next week's homework, so you can work ahead if you want to. So typically I will have, at any given point, I'll have at least 2 weeks of homework available. That way, if you wanted to work ahead a little bit or something, if you did have a vacation or something planned, I kind of recommend not taking like a full week completely off the course. If you go on vacation, touch base with the course, here and there throughout your vacation. But if you wanted to work ahead just to lighten the load a little bit, you can do that. Are there any questions on any of this stuff so far? Oh, I see. I had my meeting controls hidden, so I see there are some questions in chat, so let me get to those. Let's see. Question: what Shams outline is yeah, you could use any edition. I mean, the one that I have here is just called Calculus. It's the 6th edition by Frank Ayers, but really any Shams Calculus, any edition I think would be fine. A lot of time I think the brand new editions for Shams are like $20 or something, so it's not going to break the bank either way, but you can find older editions of any of these books for typically quite a bit cheaper. You probably can find a Shams I don't know, 3rd edition or something, and Calculus hasn't changed since the 3rd edition. I promise you that. You'd probably find one for a few bucks or something on Amazon. And yes, you can use an Inspire calculator. You can use any calculator that is only a calculator you can use. You can't use your phone or Desmos on your computer or something like that as your calculator, but any device that's just a calculator you can use. So TI Inspire 89 or something like that, kind of some of the more popular engineering calculators are fine. Will we be sending in work for exams for partial credit? So in the past, the answer has been no. I'm kicking around the idea for this summer. I'm kicking around the idea of piloting that this summer. Part of the reason for that is that we have, it's a bit of a long backstory, but we're considering switching exam proctoring providers from Examity to maybe a different system. And some of them provide a more integrated kind of, sending in work for partial credit type of system. So I'm considering that. I'll kind of make that determination and let you know more about that as we approach the midterm. And in the past, I have not done that, but since some of the resources we're looking at possibly switching to or offering that, I might try that with Examity and see how it works, just for my information, so we can make, I can make an informed decision when we have the discussions about whether to switch or stick with Examity. So that's a very good question, and maybe more information on that in the near future. How long does it take to know the grade for an exam taken? So you'll get a what I would call kind of a preliminary grade or a raw grade immediately. So right away, WebAssign will say, here's your grade for the exam. But note that obviously that grade that you'll get right away will not factor in any manual review that I'll have done, any partial credit or anything that I will give if I see that, oh, okay, you got this question wrong, but it was just a syntax issue, or it was clearly a typo or something like that. Or maybe it was just a sign error and, positive to negative or something, and I'll give you partial credit for that. So that process, kind of my manual review of the exam, will be done certainly within a week of the due date for the exam. But I usually try to get it done as quickly as reasonably possible, especially with these condensed courses, so that you can get good feedback pretty quickly. So, I mean, ideally within a couple of days, if the exam's due on Sunday, ideally by Tuesday or so, I've sent out the announcement and said, hey, I've reviewed everything. But, I do give myself up to a week just in case anything, goes a little wrong or something, especially if I'm going to do the kind of sending in photos kind of thing for the partial credit. I don't know how that's going to go because it'll be my first time doing it. So that might take a little longer. How much time for the exam? Is it timed? I will send out more information about the exams later on, but midterm, I think I'll probably go with about 90 minutes, and the final exam is 2 hours, essentially by college policy. Is the class curved? Um, so the exams could be curved, but I've taught this course enough times that I think I've kind of dialed in the difficulty of the exams, so I don't think that I really need to curve the exams. I think the scores typically end up where in kind of the range that I would expect. But if something went catastrophically wrong, and for some reason the problems that I picked for a certain exam, you know, students really struggled with, and the grades were very low, I would consider a curve in that case. During midterm week, do we know where we stand grade wise? What so you always know where you stand grade wise. The homework assignments, on WebAssign, as soon as you complete the problem, you enter the answer and you click submit, it grades it right away. So your homework score on WebAssign is always up to date. So you can always, keep track of your homework score and see where you stand. Yes, you can use the TI-84 calculator. Yeah, so for Examity, that will be a link through Blackboard. It's not, I don't have the link available to you guys right now, but if I turn this off, you'll see this Examity sign-on link here, which right now is hidden from you. That will be made available. There will be an Examity practice exam that will, essentially just be like a fake exam, so to speak. It'll be a couple of random questions or something just to really get you logged onto the system, get you, acclimated with how it works and all of that. Will there be any videos? I do plan to post videos for the course. So the first set of videos or first video or two should be available later this week. And then each week there should be, I plan to post a couple of videos. I also plan to make available in the next day or so. I'm trying to roll things out a little bit at a time, because with these online courses kind of just being blasted with, 100 different things is kind of, I can't think of the word, but it makes it a little confusing. So I will post some other supplemental resources likely tomorrow that have some links to some other, high quality coursework or course recordings. So you can use those resources. You can use any lectures that I post, the textbooks, any third-party ancillaries, Khan Academy, these kind of things, any of the WebAssign tools, which we'll talk about in a minute here. So all of those will be available. Yes, on exams, there is one attempt. So you get one attempt for the exam, and that is all. Can you have more than 5 attempts in the homework? So for the review homework, you have 100 attempts, which is the most I can give. So for that homework, really the idea is to get you acclimated to the WebAssign system in a setting that hopefully you're kind of familiar with the material. But then after that, the homework is really meant as an assessment of your knowledge. So I think 5 attempts is actually pretty gracious. I think something more like 3 attempts would be more standard. But again, take a look at the workflow pointers document, and that will kind of explain the purpose of the homework. So, the homework is meant as kind of an assessment for after you think you understand the material. While you're learning the material, I would recommend, say taking random problems out of the textbook. The odd number problems typically have the answers in the back of the book. So you can work a couple of odd number problems in the book, go to the back of the book, check your answers. And when you feel confident that you understand the material and you're getting the answers right, that's whenever you would want to start the homework on WebAssign. Okay, can I post more than 2 weeks ahead for homework? Yeah, I mean, it's 2 weeks plus or minus, but I wouldn't want to post significantly more than 2 weeks, because I do want folks to more or less stay in line with one another. It makes it easier for me to keep track of what students are doing and what questions folks might have. And it makes collaboration between students, if you wanted to create a study group or something like that, easier. So So short answer is it'll be roughly 2 weeks. Maybe sometimes there will be 3 weeks ahead, but not much more than that. For exams, they are only available those weeks. So make sure that you have those weeks available for the exams. Okay, I think that takes care of chat for now. Yeah, all very good questions. Okay, so jumping over to WebAssign. Now, one mildly annoying thing about WebAssign is WebAssign used to be its own company, and maybe 3 or 4 years ago, Cengage bought it. So there are a couple of different ways to log into WebAssign and get access to it. One is through like the Cengage Brain, like website or home base or whatever you want to call it. Personally, I like the look of the webassign.net approach a little better. I think they're all the same material, but they just have slightly different, looks to them. So I'm using the webassign.net approach, but if you're going through Cengage Brain, it should look fairly similar. But maybe some of the details are a little different. This is the student side. So you should, if you log on to WebAssign, you should see something that looks roughly like this. We have a list of some assignments along with our due dates. 3 different assignments here due this coming Sunday. Note that if you don't have the book or access code or whatever yet, that's not a problem. You have a 2-week free trial period, so you can log on. You can get full access for the 2 weeks, no problem. And then you can work out the details later on. So even if you don't have an access code or something yet, make sure to get logged on right away. There is access to the textbook. Log me out. Let's see. There we go. Access to the textbook. So this is, the same as the normal textbook. When you're in a chapter, you can navigate this way. If you want to go to a different chapter, I find it a little strange. I don't know, maybe if you're a generation below me, maybe you find it more natural, but this X up here on the right, you click that and that lets you navigate to the different chapters. And I guess this came up because I probably was most recently here in chapter 13, but you can see it's going to look just like reading through the normal textbook, with the exception that you have some nice little details here where, you can jump to different areas of the book and so on that are referenced. But with the exception of links and things like that and some embedded videos and stuff, it's going to read just like the textbook. And then you occasionally have some other little niceties like that. So you'll have access to the textbook again. Even if you don't have the textbook today, you can get access to it with the free trial. There's this personal study plan that a lot of students like, just to kind of review things. You can just go into a chapter and either do a practice quiz on a certain section, a practice quiz on a whole chapter. You can do a tutorial. So some students like to do this just to kind of drill some problems. It will kind of randomly generate new numbers each time that a problem is reloaded. So some students like to do that. And then in the homework assignments, you'll see most of the homework assignments have this kind of just open response text box. Some of them are multiple choice. But you can type math kind of stuff in here. So if I wanted x squared, I can do x caret shift 6 2 to type in x squared or something like that. I can type in something like square root SQR, and when I hit T, it'll turn it into a square root. If I want a Greek letter, I can just type it out. and it'll turn it into the Greek letter. If I want a fraction, just hitting the / the divided by sign will give me a fraction. So things like that that are kind of nice. If I want a subscript, I can do underscore, so shift and then the button next to 0. So some of these keyboard shortcuts are nice to know. But if you didn't know them, you could always, use the calc pad over here on the right, X, and then the exponent button and 2. You could do that as well, if you wanted a square root sign. Something to note is we'll often be dealing with vectors. In this vector submenu, there are these I, J, and K that are bolded. These are the kind of, standard basis vectors, they're called. We'll learn a little more about these a little later on. I think a lot of this should be familiar to you and from the previous work in chapter 12, it should be a review from some stuff in Calc 2. But these standard basis vectors, I, J, K, are these bold ones here. If you just type in, like 3i plus 2j minus k, even if that was kind of, minus k, even if that was like qualitatively the right answer, WebAssign isn't going to like that because it's going to look at this and say, wait, these aren't the standard basis vectors. So it's going to want you to do 3i, plus 2j minus k with these vectors. So something to note there. There are some help tools. So if you're thinking, wait, I'm not really sure how to solve this kind of problem, maybe you thought you understood it, but you're a little stuck, you can click the watch it, and let me share my full screen so you can see this. You can do watch it, and there's a video somebody solved. There's a video somebody solving a similar problem from start to finish. So some of the problems have the watch it, some of them don't. There is a master it option, which kind of walks you through step by step through that problem. And there's read it, which will jump you to the appropriate section in the textbook. Now, one of the nice things about this type of a system is, as I kind of mentioned before, is submit answer, and you get immediate feedback. So right away, I know, okay, I did this problem, but I got it wrong. Maybe I'll, revisit that topic. Maybe I'll check my work. I can get a summary of that up top here. I see I got 0 out of 3 points for that problem. My score has been updated. So again, so which one is closest to the YZ plane? The one with the smallest in magnitude X value. So I suppose that would be C instead. If I want to change my answer, resubmit. I see I got that one right. And I see that my score up here for problem 2 has been updated and my total score has been updated. So your score is updated in essentially real time. And so you always kind of know where you stand with each homework set, with each course. You don't need to, like do some kind of final submission or something for the homework. Whatever score you see up here, that is your score, right? So when you get to 74 to 74, whatever number you're happy with, you're done. You don't need to like send it in or submit it or finalize it or anything like that. Looks like a couple of questions in chat. Let me go back to this share. Okay, so question, an hour for online tutoring. Well, that's basically office hours. And so that's what I was kind of saying earlier, is if you want to email me and set up a time to meet over Zoom, I'm fine with that. For online sections, if I schedule an office hour each week, then there are going to be students that time works for and students that it doesn't work for. So that's why I try to be flexible. So if you have questions about something, and you wanted to meet over Zoom, just shoot me an email and I'm happy to meet, over Zoom occasionally. So I have an access code for the 9th edition for my school. Will it work for the 8th edition? I don't know. I would say try it and see if it works. If it doesn't work, let me know. And I can put you in touch with the Cengage rep. They're usually pretty good about stuff like that, being able to get you access where you have access to something that's qualitatively similar. So give it a try and let me know if it doesn't work. And again, this is what that 2-week free trial is for. So if any of these kind of things need to be ironed out, we have plenty of time. We didn't cover anything in chapter 12 in my Calc 2 class. Am I super behind? Well, you're not super behind. It's only really 4 sections. And they are, I don't want to say they're easy, but they're certainly not the most difficult material in the course. So if you haven't had exposure to things like vectors and so on, chapter 12 is at least 12.1 through 12.4. I don't think they're super difficult material. Maybe what I'll do actually is I have a recording from my Calc 2 class this past semester. Maybe I'll just post that, and that'll kind of, walk through the material from first principles. And so I can just post that recording. I mean, it might, sound a little strange because I'm addressing a Calc 2 class. But I might talk about the final exam or something like that during the lecture. But yeah, maybe I'll post that, and so you can watch that if you need kind of a from first principles approach. But yeah, I mean it is not the most challenging material in the course for these first couple of sections of chapter 12. So I think you'll be able to catch up really without any problem. That's something that we did fairly recently. We try to maintain kind of consistency with Pitt, with the University of Pittsburgh. And so they started including vector calculus into Calc 3. And that kind of had a cascade effect where that pushed some of the chapter 12 material into Calc 2, and then pushed a little bit of the Calc 2 material kind of into Calc 1, just to make room for that vector calc. So we kind of followed that model as well. But not all schools follow that. I mean, chapter 12 really properly belongs in Calc 3, but just to make room for it, we pushed a little bit of it into Calc 2. But again, that's not hard material to catch up on. I think that was all that I had to say about this. Yeah, you can see these kind of special standard basis vectors, I, J, and K down here. All right, are there any questions on any of this? I think I got to all of the questions that are in chat. Okay, any questions on anything else? All right, I'll stop the recording then.